Hey, I'm Matt Watts, Elusive Karma FPV. I was going to do a little build video here just for some guys that have been asking questions that I personally know and are getting into the hobby, are curious. There's a lot of shit in this hobby to retain, from how to build to where the frickin' wires go, how you make it an efficient build, clean if you care, just kind of being proactive and thinking where parts go before you go ahead and put it all together. I don't know, just things that I ran across, I guess, being a noob myself, and had to reach out for help. I'm glad Facebook is there. Met a lot of guys that gave me help on there. So yeah, I guess I'm just kind of returning the favor to the people that have inquired to it about me, and my friends as well. I have a few. I've been in it about 2 years now almost, and I've probably got in 4 people into the hobby. 4 or 5, something like that. Anyways, it keeps growing, so I figured I'd throw a video out, kind of just explaining gear. Not really a build video per se. I guess it's the gear I use. I gotta put a Acon 4-in-1 35 amp ESC in this 6S build. It's a glide. Cool little build. I like how the arms lock in the bottom. They're up behind there, I guess you can't see it, but anyways. Yeah, so I'm gonna put the ESC in there and wire it in. I had a other ESC in there, and the thing would act fine on 4S. The guy swore up and down that it was a 6S 4-in-1. It was a 35 amp 2 to 6S Speedix, I believe it was. But every time I just put a 6S pack on it, it would just go into this fucking death roll. And I put a 4S pack on it, I flew it fine. So I didn't think it was a flight controller. So anyways, I got a new flight, or a new ESC to throw in. Hopefully that does it. I'd like to rip this thing around and beat the shit out of it. Yeah. A little bit more to come here. So here's this little rig I'm doing. Sorry about the shitty video. I'm not set up for fucking recording. Oh, dropping shit off my table. Alright. This capacitor here, wired into my direct power that goes in. It's only 35 amp. It's the biggest I had. Didn't have no 50s. It's about basically consistent power flow. People use them for cleaning up their video. Sometimes off these legs right here. Get this fucking shit out of the way. The legs on the capacitor, these 2 little guys, you hook your power up to your VTX if it's a HV. If it's not a HV VTX, then you run it off of a 5-volt off of your flight controller. We'll go over all that bullshit. Anyways, I'm throwing wires on. This shit here is called race wire. I don't usually run it, but the reason people run it is so when you eat shit and you say you break an arm, it will break here versus ripping your pads off of your ESC. Or your motor, I guess. Ripping your motor's wires out, hopefully, if it all goes well, but fuck, who knows. That's the idea behind that, I think. Race wire. Anyways, yeah, so I'm gonna get soldering these on here. Whenever I solder, look at my soldering iron. This thing is just fucking ghetto. I need to invest in one. I always use a wet sponge to cool my shit down before I solder, and then flux Flux is a must, man. Gotta have that shit to make it shiny, make it stick, make it right. Oh man, this hillbilly shit here. So, solder these in. So I flux these before I put solder on them. And it's probably not necessary. I use a 60-40 solder. I mean, honestly, it's just like, I'm a metal fabricator by trade. I've been a fabricator for 20 years, sad to say. Don't like the trade, but anyways, I picked up some things about metals. So in our oxygen there's impurities, and when you solder, it's the same kind of deal with like welding with gas. It makes it pure around the area, as pure as it can be, versus having oxygen around it and getting impurities in there. So if you can, when you're soldering, get solder on that iron, don't let it sit too long. Keep wiping on that sponge, clean it. This race bar is kind of a bitch because they're fucking small, man. My gauge wire is probably too fat, to be honest with you, but that's all I got. I'm just gonna rip it. You know what I mean? Just gonna rip it, man. Come on. When you're soldering, as you're soldering, and you keep fucking with it like I am, you fucked it up. If you keep fucking with it, the flux just floats away in the smoke, and you got a reflux. This comes with enough flux in it, but when it starts being exposed to air, when it's in liquid form, it oxidizes. So that's the whole point in moving quick. And you also notice it'll start sticking to your fucking soldering iron. So it's always good to just fucking hit it and quit it, you know what I'm saying? You hear that flux. The flux also kind of helps soak the solder back up. It wicks it back up in the wire, so it's not just like topical, you know. When you're soldering, if you, especially the thicker stuff, you want to I'm fucking with it too much. You want to hold it and make sure it fucking wets in. And what I mean by wetting in is make sure the surface below it liquefies, because if it doesn't, then you're cold solder and you're stacking solder up on shit. I'm trying to get these fucking, I knew I was gonna do that. So I got the little glide here. I got all my wires on my motors. I'm gonna wire them into my ESC pads. This is a 4-in-1 electronic speed controller, ESC. This guy here is a VTX, meaning video transmitter. This is what transmits the signal back to my goggles. I like running Tramp VTXs on my freestyle rigs. They're tough as hell and they work good and they're cheap. So I had like 20 feet of this wrap, this wire wrap, so you've probably seen on my builds, I put it on everything. I just got black because I don't know what fucking color my prints are going to be. Black goes with a lot of stuff. So for those of you running Crossfire, all I run's Crossfire. Sorry, no FrSky here. So I wrote this down and I've referenced to it several times. When I go to put one of these in, so you can see that the big square pad there on the bottom is the ground. Square pad on them is always the ground. Then 5 volts right above it. And you got channel 2 and channel 1 out. So I reference to me TX, so TX RX. Your RX from one thing always goes to your TX on the other. So this TX means it's transmitting a signal. So in order for something to receive it, you need to be on an RX on your flight controller, because that's receiving the signal. It's receiver. Same thing with receiver. It goes to a TX. Just opposite of what it is, because that's how they talk. That's how they communicate. You know what I'm saying? Communication. So I'm gonna get to building on this thing. So my SMA connection for my VTX, what your antennas go to. It's a Triumph, Team Black Sheep. In my opinion, Amway, you can't beat for a antenna that does great through penetrating through trees and shit. Amway little blue antennas with the clear caps, best antennas. Anyways, I'm gonna make some sense of this and we'll get back, see how it turns out. Okay, so I got all my wires cut to length, what I need. Except for that guy. I wouldn't worry about that little guy. Anyways, so that's kind of what I do to get my lengths of wire. I tape, I've seen guys use putty, whatever. Just fasten this shit down so it ain't wandering around. And what I do is I solder 2 pads, and then I bring the third around, get my length, prep it, tin it. I don't even solder it. You don't need to, you know, because well, in my case I don't. I'm gonna put wrap around these wires, so I'm getting my lengths. I do the 2 outside, inside, middle. I guess that you could call that the inside since it's called the other one the outside. This would go to the inside on here. And that's all gonna, these 2 outer wires, when you flip them, that's gonna reverse the rotation. So when I put this together, they may or may not be spinning in the right way. They're probably not going to be, but you get into a program on the computer called BL Heli, and you can reverse the rotation of the ESC output there on that ESC. And I can already see two and you see over there a 3 and a 1. Yeah, it's a 1. So it's all fucked up. So when you grab a quad, generally, in Betaflight, this is the front, this is the back, this is motor 1, 2, 3, and motor 4. Those numbers on the ESC represent what motor that's supposed to be running in order for it to communicate right. So you can see my 1 is where my 2 would be, and my 3 is where my 1 would be. So what I'm going to do is this pinout right here. This plastic pinout that comes out of this speed controller right here. On this end of it, I'm going to change my motor wires to the corresponding motors that they need to go to. And you can see some ESCs have it and some don't. Same with flight controllers. But there's a layout right there of what those pins represent. So TX is like telemetry, CNT would be current, motor 1, 2, 3, 4. And this ESC, the first power after 4 is battery voltage, I believe. The next one up, no. The first power after 4 is 5 volt. The next one up is bat voltage, which would be VBAT on the flight controller. And then ground and ground. So I took a few pictures here. So this is the kind of shit my quad fill sticker is sticking out. Okay. This is kind of shit you look up on the computer or online. So I looked at my flight controller, I made sure it was the right one. Sometimes these little things vary and there's not a whole lot of description, but I search a Google image, and there's probably more efficient ways to doing this, but like I said, I'm kind of a greenhorn, just trying to help out the people that inquired to me personally about this. This is the other end of where that plastic pin is going to go. VBAT, that would be my battery. Current, ground, 5 volt motors. Okay. This is my ESC. So basically, you know, just putting shit where it goes. You gotta just pay attention. It takes time, patience, and yeah, we'll get there. As long as you don't bridge those freaking powers and negatives, you should be good to go. I'm gonna make sense of this thing and show you guys the end result here. Talk a little bit about gear. So here is what it looks like for, I guess it starts making sense. I got these pieces cut. You got to burn the ends before you put them on, because these things will fray. And then the piece that you cut is fucked. It's kind of a struggle to work with, but after a little while you get used to it. So I'm gonna start putting all these in where they go. Nice thing about putting them in through there and cutting them to length before doing so is I know what wires are what now. Before, if I just ran them straight up the arm here and whoop into this, the wires kind of end up close to the same length, and I like to get a ink pen, and I will, a paint pen, and I'll mark one yellow and one white on opposite outside and inside. The middle wire I leave black, but that way when I poke it through the wire insulation wrap here, these things sometimes will get discombobulated, and at least you know which one's which. You know the center's always the center because it's not painted, so that helps me. That's what I do. Sipping on some coffee. Got my son, my only son, down here with me. Shadow. Hey, Shadow. What's up? What's up? Yeah, anyways, we're chilling in the hobby room. Mom is sleeping like she always does. So I'm gonna start wiring these in, and then I'll be right back and get this shit wrapped up and talk a little bit about gear, stuff I run. Yeah, anywho, get back at you. Alright, so here's the build going. I got all my wires in. I got my shrink tube and wire wrap cut to length and set. I just learned this today. Before, I've put these pieces of shrink tube in underneath my motor just because it looks it clean. The ends of this shit will fray bad if they pop out. I mean, you always melt them, but while this is hot, while this shrink tube's hot, if you take something flat and skinny, razor blade might not be the best option, but hey, fuck it. I took a razor blade, I slid it underneath this motor, and I pushed it down, and then when it was cooling off, it kept its form and allowed it to not rub on the motor. I've put them in before, and it just rubbed on the motor a little bit, you know, and I just had to come in here and bend the wire down. It ain't a huge deal, but you don't want any kind of friction on those bitches if you can't avoid it. What up? Build's coming along. Glasses are pretty cool, huh? Got that purple tint. I'm fucking digging it. Can't see my eyeballs. I like that shit. Anywho, I'm gonna get this thing wrapped up. Got my wiring looking nice and tidy. You want that shit tight. You want it to look good. You want to care about what you're doing. So take the time and take the pride and make it nice. It speaks a lot about you as a person, you know. When you slap shit together kind of sloppy and half-assed, well, I mean, that's a direct reflection kind of on your outlook, I guess, maybe attitude. It's just not good, you know. Life's short, take your time and do shit right. So I want to get this up just as tight as I can, looking good, and then the programming comes in. I fucking hate that part. I'm still a noob. I mean, I can't say a noob. I've almost been at it 2 years. I don't know. I got a lot to learn. We all do. I mean, you never stop learning, and that's why it's called beta flight, right? Fucking shit's always changing. Anyways, flying's a fucking blast. There's a lot that goes into it, but yeah, I guess I'm just kind of making a video bullshit and not really a build video. I guess I can go over my gear though, so it can have some purpose. Anywho, I want to slap this flight controller on here, kind of go over that in a minute with you guys, and I will get right back at it. That's right, I almost forgot. So, this little bastard here, coming out of my ESC, I'm gonna pull all the wires off of this plastic connector and just start over from scratch instead of trying to flippy floppy them back and forth. I'm not a fan of flippy floppy anything, so I'm gonna pull all these out, relocate, plug them in, double triple check that shit, make sure I didn't fuck anything up, and then screw on that flight controller and work my way out of this quad. Okay, here's the little wiring harness I've been fucking around with forever, it feels like. Anyways, doubled and triple checked where all these little wires go. I don't know if I can zoom in on this thing. Nope. Okay. So this here, when I remove these wires, I grab a razor blade and I'll poke it down and those little plastic tabs that are holding these down. So you kind of pry it up and then you pull the wire out. You don't want to pry it up too far and mess up your little wiring harness plug in here. So usually I'll pull these out, organize. Before I shove them in, I'll take the same razor blade and I'll push each one down so it kind of has, I guess, downward pressure to catch the little metal tab on the ends of these wires. And when you go put these wires in to the holder, you want to grab it. I know I got fat fingers and you probably can't see shit. You want to grab them and pull them. Make sure they're in there, because I've had it. Everybody's probably had it, where you go plug it in and something just ain't working right. And a lot of times them stupid little harnesses, they do that. I like to use 4-in-1 ESCs and CL Racing F4 flight controllers, because I can wire it just straight up to the flight controller. But this build's a little different. It ain't gonna let me do that. So just working with what I got. Yeah, I'm just about ready to slap this flight controller on, figure out my standoffs that I'm gonna need. I have some in here that I think will work, but these stupid little standoffs, it seems like when I started out they used to come with flight controllers. Maybe they came with the ESCs, I can't remember, but they come with something, and now they don't fucking give you nothing. So I've been pillaging through old shit that I keep, and it sucks, but the stash is getting down there. Used to be able to order or buy these things and they'd come with standoffs for the part. I don't know why that would change. It's kind of a needed fucking part in this, but whatever. Anyways, I'm gonna get this flight controller on here, go over that in a second. I guess the outputs and meanings and why is why and what's what. Anyways, we'll get back to you here in a second. Alright, I'm back. Fucking back at it. So flight controller's in. Let's go over that. Table starting to look like a bomb went off. It always does when I start building. Start out clean. I guess like anything though. You start working, you get tools and just bullshit spread around and it starts looking fucked up. I like shit organized, but sometimes I stop halfway and clean shit up just because I like it so much, or I'm anal, I guess. So here on my video transmitter, since this is a Tramp, on here they have audio telemetry. So on Tramp, I run that T to my port on my flight controller for Smart Audio because it's Tramp. If this was a TBS, you'd run off of audio or a RX1. I think it would be off of an RX, off the ESC. So when I do a build, man, is that backwards, you guys? Fuck, I didn't think about that. Anyways, when I do a build, I write down what my Smart Audio is hooked up to. UART. It's these ports in your ports tab. They're called UARTs. I don't know who the fuck came up with that name. Anyways, it's got some scientificness behind it, I'm sure. Crossfire. I just write down what they go on to, because that way when you go to hook it up to Betaflight, you're not sitting there scratching your head like shit. And you can take a picture, but a lot of times the wires will run over the UART. A lot of times the wires, they'll run right over its little designation, its label, and then you can't see what the hell it is. So while you're doing it, if you just write it down, it makes it a lot easier. These two pads pulled off of this flight controller, I don't know, I got this thing used. It could be maybe me using too much heat, so that's something you got to look out for. If you're using your soldering iron shitty and old and ghetto and you got a fat tip like mine, you can't turn it down. This will and does occur at times, which fucking sucks, but thank God there was another UART. I just ran it over here to 5. So, fuck 2. Anyways, smart audio, I hooked that up. So this, when you get a flight controller, you know, fuck this thing. Grab this. This is the shit right here. This shiznit, these ones. So I'm trying to make this so you can see it. I suck at this. That's all what it's all about, right? Learning everything here. How to be a cameraman and how to identify how improper I am set up. So anyways, your camera typically will run in. This goes to my camera. My cam. Then generally you have 3 wires coming off of your cam, a power, a ground, and your video. Sometimes you'll have a OSD and ground. You can see that's bigger than 3 wires. So there's an OSD, and that allows you to get in, basically get into your camera and adjust your settings. So when I get into my OSD on my controller, I push up on my right stick, and on your throttle stick, your left yaw all the way, and you got to hit centers, and it'll bring up your OSD, and you can get in there and adjust all kinds of shit. But when you hook up a camera, you got cam C, cam S, cam plus, and cam negative. So obviously your power and ground for your camera here. Your cam C is your camera, your current, or no, sorry, your control. This is what's gonna control your OSD and your what's gonna allow you to get into that OSD and make setting adjustments on your camera. If you don't have that hooked up to camera C, then you're not gonna be able to get into your cam. Cam S is camera signal, so that's what your 90% of the time your yellow wire off your cam, which is your video. Your video is going to run into your cam S, which is your camera sensor, or it'll be video in. So your speed controller, when you go to hook that up, you're doing the opposite. You're coming down here, I guess opposite end. You got your power and your ground for your VTX. This is a Tramp, so I run this off of direct power. This board, I don't even know if you guys can see that, has an option for 5 volt or 7.2. A lot of times VTXs, if they're high volt, they'll have a minimum of volts that it will accept, and if it's 5 volt minimum, you don't want to run 5 volt off of somewhere where it's going to not be a consistent 5 volt, because then if it gets below that and you have a blackout, well, you're wrecking and losing your quad possibly. So with the Tramp, and being that it's an HV, I usually run these off of direct power, or if my flight controller is like a 10 volt, I'll run it off of that. I mean, this would probably be adequate, but I'm going to run it off of direct power. So I'll run that into here, and then a lot of times these will have a 5 volt option. So that 5 volt option is 5 volts coming out to run your cam, and it gives you cleaner video. It's got, I don't know, capacitors, things in there to clean it. Fuck, I don't know all this shit. Anyways, I'm trying. VTX plus minus your power and your ground, and then you have a VTX signal, which is the VTX-S, and that's the same thing. Your video from your cam is going to come in here, it's going to run through the board, and then it's going to come out to your transmitter, which is going to relay that signal back to you through the antenna. I bet a lot of guys are fucking just cracking up at this. Anyways, so running through the board allows you to get OSD, so you can get in and adjust PIDs, adjust all kinds of shit. If you skip the board, you can't have any OSD. Sorry, Okay, so here's the glide build. It's a Hyperlite glide. I'm gonna just beat up on it. 6S build. God, look at the table. It just got murdered. So there she is. You guys kind of look at the soldering here. It's not the prettiest, but for what I got, it'll work. Yeah, I always get some alcohol if you can find it in this fucking crazy ass time we're in. Good luck. And a toothbrush. And that flux, it tends to get in between all these little pads and joints. I've had it be conductive and cause me problems. Never anything that makes anything fail except other than the procedure. So you got to plug it in or something, and something's not acting right. It very well could be the flux that's conductive connecting those pads. So I always wipe everything with alcohol after soldering and using flux. It cleans all that brown bullshit off. It just makes it look nice. So that's done, I believe. I'll kind of go over gear here. This is Robert's card. Just some crap over time I came across and used. This is a pepper box. This thing works pretty good. There's bearings for my bigger motors. This is a 28065 I fried on my FR7. I think the ESC fucked me. I'm not sure. OTS. Got that. Thank you, Tyler. Some 6S motors and stuff I haven't ran yet. Props. Big props, quads. FR7. 10-inch Yeti. 8-inch AR8. That thing's fun, but not really for filming. My Floss 7-inch. This is a little 5-inch double. I haven't got to rip that. It was such a tight build. I put a Seal racing board in it, and man, there was no wire showing or nothing, but it caused a little box on my flight controller to pop, and well, I gotta replace it. This is my go-to rig right here. Not because it's Hermotten, just because it's what I'm used to. It's my freestyle quad. I kind of got over the fear of hurting it, and once you do that, then you kind of learn, I guess, you're shooting gaps and stuff a little bit better. But that's my Rooster 6S. Good fun build. Okay, so packs. These are packs I run. These are all 4S for my Marmot. Marmot's my last 4S rig I got left. These are 5S. I actually been running these on the Rooster, and I like them. The only reason I'm running them is because I don't have any real adequate 6S packs for that rig. These are all 6S, but they're for my bigger quads, so I don't run them on the Rooster. This is my transmitters. FrSky, Taranis, X9D. I upgraded the gimbals. It really, in my opinion, it smoothed out my flying. Made me feel a little more steady, and I was able to give more expo into the center of my sticks. This is a Crossfire. This is a long-range unit for the back of the transmitter. I don't even use this. I should tear it off. I won't ever use it. This is the antenna to it. I mean, there's different types, just like all the transmission. Anything it is, you have different types of antennas and things, so I just kind of run that guy. If I'm going long range, I put it on my Diamond. But yeah, this is a cheap radio. Cheap radio, it's got good gimbals. I recommend it because it's plug and play. Other than downloading or uploading OpenTX to it so you can run this external Crossfire. And then my goggles, started out with Dom V3s. I have HDOs now. My buddy just got some HDO 2s, and they're surprisingly a lot. It seems like the clarity is a lot better than these. Anyways, you get used to what you fly. My Dom V3s, I could probably go right back to those and be just as content. They're great goggles. These are good too. So a lot of guys know, but some of you don't. You don't want to get sun in the back of these to the lenses. It can cause, I guess, blank spots or foggy spots on the sides or wherever the sun hits. So you want to keep the back of that out of the sun, keep it protected. I run a rapid fire receiver, 5.8 gigahertz. Everything I run's 5.8. I haven't experienced with 2.4. It, from what I understand, penetrates further, but it's better for like rural areas because it'll also pick up a lot more shit if you're using 2.4 somewhere where there's a lot of people using a lot of Wi-Fi and stuff. So anyways, I run 5.8. This is the receiver that receives the signal from my video transmitter and lets me see what the hell's going on. Shadow buddy. Another little thing here I would recommend 100% with anybody starting out. Get yourself some Firefly buzzers. There's another company, Hellgate makes one. They're a little smaller and they're like twice the price. I mean, these are pretty fucking small. They work really good. So that little chip, that white rectangle there is a light, LED light. It flashes a white light and it will beep for, I think it's 72 hours up to like 120 decibels. The fucker is loud. It's annoying to deal with every time you plug it in to get it to shut off. If that button's accessible somewhere, which most of the times it's not, but if you make that button accessible, then you don't gotta plug it in to shut it off. So when you plug it in, it activates this beeper for when it loses power, it'll go off. So every time you unplug your quad when you're swapping packs, you got to plug your battery in, wait for this thing to beep 3 times, and then unplug real quick, and that's what shuts this off from beeping. But there's been several times where, I mean, I'll set a beeper up on my quad in Betaflight for a switch, but if your battery comes unplugged, you're fucked. So if you get one of these, it's got an onboard LiPo, and you wreck and eat shit, and this is strapped to your quad really good, this thing will beep for a day or two really fucking loud with a white light, and they're totally worth getting because, I mean, no matter how good you are, you're gonna wreck. And if you live in the woods and somewhere around like me where there's a bunch of brush and shit, this is a must. So I recommend this to all you noobs like me. Get one, put them on every build. I mean, if you got something like a bando rig, you might not need it, but if you're flying around the woods and you got some shit, it's gonna make it hard to find. You definitely want a buzzer. Okay, so I got that buzzer installed. I swear all these are fucking different. They same brand, same company, but the beep sequence, or maybe it's the flight controller, they just sometimes are different. I got some of them that do bunch of little chirps before it shuts off. This one's just fucking quiet. Anyways, so I got wired in there, ground. There's a buzzer plus and a buzzer minus. Of course, plus goes to the red. The minus went to the yellow, which is like a sensor. I wired these things up wrong before, assuming there's 2 different ways, 2 different types they're saying here. That's basically what they recommend for a type A or a type B. Anyways, plug this thing in. Let me show you what it does here. So I wanted to throw this out. Usually when you do a build, I always, since I don't have a voltage tester, I'll go over to my buddies. You plug into both of these with the tester. You just touch them and make sure it's an open circuit. If it's not an open circuit, you have something shorted out and you do not want to introduce power to the system. Just a heads up, save you a lot of fucking headache. So I'm gonna plug this in. Hear that buzzer kind of started to chime, but my other buzzer, it'll beep 3 times. I'm gonna plug it in and then when I unplug it. So this is what happens when you eat shit, you wreck. Boom, battery's out. That little LiPo is just a working. And I mean, this thing, I think the light will go off after a certain amount of time. It starts to freak out. And it's probably a low battery because I just pulled this thing out of the box, so I don't think they come fully charged. It kind of just slowly charges over time of you plugging it in. Give it a second and it'll start bitching at me. Give a sip. There you go. Whoo, bitch. Okay. The woman is probably going to bitch at me. I better shut that off. So you hear those 3 beeps. That means it's done. And we're good to go. Tried programming in this. Fucking realized, well, that's Emu Flight on there. And it ain't going to work with my little Speedy Bee, so I'm gonna have to go to my buddies and figure that out. Alright, so build's done. Fucking sun's beaming in my room here. My little hobby room. Build's done. Another one to throw up on the wall. You can see I've had my trials and errors already with this, hence the white prints that are looking like they're full of chlorophyll. It's because they are. Just got to throw some zip ties on her and do some programming. And do a little bit of PID tuning. Go rip that bitch. I might do a video on PID tuning. Not that I'm an expert, but how I do it. I like to go in through my OSD. I don't like new Betaflight using fucking sliders and all that bullshit. I turn my forward feeds off. I basically bring my I's down to 10. I bring my D's down to 5. I bring my P's to 10. I'll start building them up, starting with my P's until it feels responsive to me. And when I do that, I'll go into my rates and I'll turn my rates up to 1, expo all the way off, basically like if you were starting out new. That way I'm adjusting the feel for the P without there being expo in it. So I make sure it does what I want it to do, and then I'll do hard stick movement. So I'll move it to the right and stop real hard, and if it gets a little bit of wobble, you bring up your D, and that D kind of helps that oscillation. So anyways, I can fucking ramble on. That's a whole nother video. I probably wouldn't even be the best to do that anyways. But that's what works for me. So anyways, I hope you guys liked the video. I'm sorry for rambling on. I probably was all over the place. I know some of the views probably sucked. I had, you see that tripod up there? I had my phone taped to that. I am really not set up for this. It's kind of a, I guess, a video to get my face out there, but also a video to kind of help whoever out that can find any helpful information off of this video. You can always contact me and ask me any kind of questions. I will find the right answer out. I don't give false advice. I'm not going to tell you I know something and I don't. I'll ask somebody that knows more than me. It's just who I am. So a lot of guys like to bullshit. Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, that's what you do. Well, no, you're a fucking idiot. Anyways, Let me get this thing built, and I'll probably do a video flying it here sooner or later. But gotta get it. I guess it is built. Gotta get it programmed. That's the hardest part. I suck at computers. I work with my hands. The computer gets me every time. I mean, I'm in that day and age where I need to learn it, but fucking jeez. I guess getting one would be a start. Take care, guys. Hope you liked the video. Sorry for rambling so much. Comment. I'll get back to you. I mean, I'll do my best. Later.